lunch as I strolled without a care, cause I'm going down the road to a brand new place, and I'll get there with a smile on my face. Yeah, so lift me up, I'm moving on, singing and dancing while I play my song.
Welcome, welcome, your backup plan tribe, to another awesome show. I'm so excited to have everybody here today. Welcome. My name is Tina Ginn. I am a best-selling author of In the Blink of an Eye. Just like that, things happen to you without you realizing it sometimes. I am an emergency preparedness coach, a best-selling author, and of course, an app developer of Your Backup Plan app, and I'm located here in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. I'd like to welcome everybody today who are brand new to our channel or who are returning. Thank you. I'd like to, share with you our podcast today with a very special guest coming to you from New York, and which is like on the other side of our continent from us. So, but we're close. We're close. I haven't been there, but I plan on going to New York one of these days. I'd like to welcome all of our United States and our Canadian listeners, because they're the majority of who listen to our podcast in the last 3 seasons that we've been on this channel. And I'd like to welcome our German listeners also, because, they're our third top listeners. I think the next one is Ireland still. So Ireland, you're still up there in the 4th rank. And Sweden is 4th right now, which is strange because they keep fluctuating. But thank you, everybody. I'd like to thank you for everything that you do for us and our channel. Thank you so very, very much. What do we do with Talking Taboo with Tina? On our show, we talk about, we focus on real, raw, real life conversations with our listeners about their life-changing event that happened and occurred in their life. And, it changes us forever. And I talk about this in our show all the time. And Your Backup Plan app brings, your life into one place. So of any case, of any unpredictable circumstance, while taking that painful aftermath out of that tragedy. And then people say, well, what the heck does that mean, Tina? It means that, sometimes we're living our fast world. And that's why I had Kristina on today from New York, because she was one in a busy corporate world in Wall Street in New York, and there's no time, between work, family, and life in general. There's no time for all the little things that we talk about on the show, about being better prepared. And there's just little tiny things that you can start changing in your life so that you're better prepared for the unexpected, whether it's a hurricane, or a tornado, or a wildfire, or a house fire, or an apartment fire, or for that matter, the Florida collapse of the apartment building, of the condo collapse. Something like that changes your life forever. And that's why I love talking and bringing guests on and sharing the stories with you about how it's changed their lives. Sometimes for the better, and sometimes there's a secret, magical reason why it's for the better, but sometimes we just don't know what that is at the time. So let's get this party started. I'd like to welcome my German listeners also. Meine deutsche Freunde sind in unserem Podcast willkommen. Wenn Sie Kommentare haben, können Sie gern Fragen stellen. Also danke für deine Freundschaft und danke fürs Erhören, meine deutsche Freunde. So thank you so very much, my United States, my Canadian, and my German, and all of the other countries that keep on racing to the top of our channel. Thank you so very much. If you found us for a reason, because what I say, Mike Tyson always says in his famous quote, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth or the face, whichever, sometimes both, and sometimes even more than that. But hey, if we could have a little bit of planning done, then, that's what our app does. It helps you do it with ease. It helps you do it with an assistant that guides you through the process and says, hey, Tina, you haven't done your will yet. Hey, Tina, you haven't done this section yet where it talks about what bills you need to pay and just in case you're not around to pay them, how would you like somebody to do that for you? So, it's stuff like that. Just make it easy for you. So let's get this party started with bringing Kristina Lucia on. Let's bring her in.
Hello.
Hi, Kristina.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so excited to have you come from New York. And I'm just going to give you quitting your corporate job after an injury to shake your soul. And that's, listening to your story, that's the title I came up with because I just felt it was so important for you. Kristina Lucia is an artist, creator, and author who ignites the imaginations of children and their parents through her limited edition of animals and storybooks. And I have all of her description of all of her social media down below. After an injury forced her to reconsider her 100-mile-an-hour corporate career for her to realize her true path. And I see you have one of your friends with you. Aw, isn't he sweet?
Yeah.
And what's his name? Or her
She.
name?
This is Bella. She is the main character of the book series. So the book series is based on her. And as I was telling you before, Bella is actually one of my nicknames. And when I started writing, I realized how much it was me, which is how I came to own and be open. Like, no, this is my nickname. It's not just a name that I was inspired to use. My friend's daughter inspired me to use that name. But then when I started writing, I was like, no, everyone calls you Bella. You need to own this. So I'm forever grateful to that little toddler who helped me identify with my inner child. And writing and blogging has also been a really crucial part of this process as well. Like getting my thoughts out, expressing like, what is it I'm supposed to do? Because it has been, like you said, it was an abrupt halt. And then getting laid off was another abrupt halt. And you're like, okay, what next? What do I do?
So where did it all start for you then? Where do you think this kind of, was it the crash of you getting injured, or do you think it kind of started before that?
I think it actually did start before that, to be honest. I briefly told you before that I grew up in a dysfunctional family. I was systematically abused, verbally, primarily verbally, and it was normal. It was very normal, and as a result, I was bullied. And so this pattern was inside me for a very long time. And unfortunately, the source of the abuse was from my mom. And I realize now that it was from her traumas that were carried over to her, and then they were being passed on to me. And I realized that I needed to make a choice.
It's like generational trauma.
Generational trauma, yeah, which is
very, unless you recognize it, right?
Which is very common. It's nothing. And if I'm talking generally, it's because I am respecting family members. And I'm also saying it generally too, because I'm realizing it wasn't an abrupt, malicious attack every day at me. It wasn't. And also there are things that I realized two other family members were going through that I may not be aware. So that's why I talk about my personal journey, and I talk about that. My mom and I got into a really bad fight, and that's what started me on my journey with therapy. So when I had my actual
Italian families don't get in fights. What are you talking about?
I know, right? So true. But when I had my physical injury, like I said to you, I was in my ballet class taking my last grand jeté, which is a big leap. And I thought the floor broke, it was me. And at this point, I already been in therapy for a while, and I already done a lot of healing work. So when I had that abrupt stop, the thing about healing is when you start healing in one area of your life, it's like an avalanche. You start seeing your patterns, and you start seeing, oh wait, I fixed this. Now I'd fix this. Now I'd fix this. And it's not so much a fix, but it's you want to make adjustments. Like you want to live a fuller life once you get a taste of it. And I realized that because of the way I was raised, I kept going into careers that I didn't fit into. And I was used to not fitting in with my family. So hence I was used to not fitting in my corporate career. So when I
Right.
was injured with this Achilles, and I know we talked about it before we started this live, Achilles is a slow healing process, and it gives you time to think. And it it threw me out of my comfort zone because I am extremely independent. I had to hire a cleaning service. I had to order food. I love to cook and bake, but I couldn't be on my legs. So I had to make all
Right.
these adjustments. I had to ask for help. I had to actually, when people said, I'll help you, I actually had to say yes, as opposed to my inner child who was always scared to ask for help because I was always being told no. And it really started that.
It's very tough. Well, for the listeners too, I just wanted to bring out that, I mean, you're a professional athlete. So there's a huge difference about you injuring yourself when that's who you are
Yeah,
that's who you identify yourself as when you're
absolutely.
cancer or whatever it might be, right?
Yes,
But
absolutely.
but going back to when you were you in a practice run when it happened or
So I was in class. So it was more, so class, you do exercises. And I was in we call it a combination in the dance world. So I was in a combination. And like I said, I was one of those things where I thought the floor broke. I was like, I'm not going to break, the floor broke. And my first thing when I went to see the MD, that's our urgent
and
care here in New
you
York.
couldn't step on it, right? So like what did that feel like for you? I mean, because you just have two strong legs that you're using all the time.
Yeah, I felt a limp. And so I knew I needed to go, and I limped my way to urgent care, and they diagnosed it almost immediately. And my tears, there were just tears and I was crying because I had a coaching with my coach coming up in a week and a half, and that's what I was crying about. And on the day of my surgery, I actually crutched into the studio to say hello to my coach. And she asked me who I kicked, and I said my instructor. And he's like, of course. And I'm like, and yeah, so that was like my first thing is like, and that's the other thing too with this injury. Even before my friend came over, and told me, "You can't keep living this double life. Like, you can't keep working in corporate and doing your dancing in the evening. You're a creative, you're an artist, like, you need to be out there in the open with this." I even before we had that conversation, my first thought on that table, even with the MRI and finding out I was going to surgery, when we got back to MRI a couple days later and they told me, "This is what happened," I'm like, "Okay, what would you recommend?" I turned, my businesswoman cap went on. Okay, what do I need to do? Because I'm a
Yeah.
dancer and I'm
Yeah,
back on the floor.
your life. It's you.
It's me. Yeah. And I was like, the funny thing is, I always say I was back in the studio before I was back in the office. Like that was like a further sign I did the right thing.
That's right.
But also, too, in light of what I said about taking a step back and realizing this doesn't work, while I was on the crutches and in the boot, again, because I couldn't dance, because I couldn't go to the office, I was on medical leave. I did have this time that I didn't always have because in
Yeah.
light of what we were talking about, I had a very strict work schedule where I had to be at my desk a certain hours a day, and I would race from work to dance. There really wasn't a lot of time, and I was never allowed to work from home. So eyes are always on you. So, obviously you're in corporate, you're not supposed to do anything personal. You have to do just corporate work, which is understandable. You're being paid to be
Yeah.
there. I get that. Like, I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's wrong, but
It's
it
hard to have life and be there too.
and I was always, because I was an executive assistant, because I wasn't an analyst job category, I also got less vacation time as well. So I never had a lot of vacation. In all my years in corporate, I was never allowed to work from home. And I always had limited vacations that also stifled a lot of things that I could do outside the
Yeah.
workspace. And now I had this time. And so I started networking. And that led me to meet my career coach. And so when I got laid off a year later, I actually did have a plan. Yes, it was scary to get laid off. Yes,
Yeah.
was luckily my physical therapy was done at that point, so I wasn't so much scared of medical at that point. But it was like, how do I make money? How do I do this? How do I move on? And
Yeah, because that's all you know.
yeah. And luckily I'd already been pivoting for a year. And I kid you not, they got me a car after I got laid off. They got me a car. I'm in the car and I'm already shooting out emails and booking coffee meetings with people. and I actually I actually networked my way into another really great job interview about a month and a half later. Walked out of that interview and I realized I can't repeat this pattern.
Right.
I was getting sucked into the same thing, the beautiful office, the promise of promotion, the more job responsibility, da da da. And I thought, nope, you've done this again and again and again. And again, it goes back to the why.
Yes.
Because I had been doing that healing work and because I'm making steps to communicate better with my family members and my friend circles and realizing and working through those traumas, I realized, no, I can't go through this again. I can make a choice. I can take a responsibility. And that's how I declare myself an entrepreneur. And to add to what you said about the what if, after I declared myself an entrepreneur, I went on my annual Europe trip. I came back and found out my mom was ill. And within 2 weeks, she was gone. None of us expected that.
Yeah.
And
Was
that
she
day,
sick a long time, or?
no, she had a bad cough for most of that year. And when I got back from my trip, she sent me a text saying she was in hospital with pneumonia. And then a couple days later, my sister and father called me saying they were doing tests on her because they detected some cancer cells. And I was actually in my ACA meeting. I'll never forget it. My phone blinked, and it was a text from my sister saying mom has lung cancer. The following day, I was in Boston, found out in front of her with a room of 10, 12 nurses. My brother and father were there too. I found out she was stage 4. And a week later, we lost her. And it's one of those.
How did that feel, Kristina?
It was
This weird relationship with your mom. So how did that feel for you?
Yeah, it at this point I have been working through my healing with my mom, but not with her. And
Yeah,
so
on your own. Yeah.
we were butting heads a lot because she wasn't on the same path as me. And the best way I could describe it is it was painful because I watched her lose years of her life because she chose not to do the work I'm doing.
Yes.
I watched her not get to become a grandma on this earth. There are things that I'm doing right now and things that I will be doing that I have to respect that she is there. The longer she's gone, though, the more I realize she did the best at what she had. And the other piece of it, too, is I realize more and more I need to respect her choices. I need to respect that she really was just trying to be the best mom she could. She didn't wake up every morning trying to be hard on me. And I'm grateful that I didn't let the abuse or the verbal insults define who I am. Now, the longer she's gone too, I'm learning when people say certain things to me, I'm like, well, actually, that's not the way it was. This is what was happening. And I'm learning to have patience not only with them, patience with her as well. At the end of the day, I love my mom. Like, my mom was a good woman. And I want to remember her like that. I want everyone that hears me speak about it to know that I do genuinely love my mom. And I know she loved me and our family back. But at the same time, I also made a promise to her. I made a promise I'd be positive. And that's why I choose to do the work I'm doing. That's why I choose to do the healing work I'm doing. I'm choosing to write books about communication because I realize I have a choice. I have a choice
from here on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I I realized that I have a responsibility as well. And I have a responsibility as well, even though, yes, there were things that were coming up. I also have a responsibility to realize she was scared. Like, for example, when I would travel alone to Europe, when I'd stop telling her about trips, because she'd always tell me I was stupid to go travel by myself. And she would get mad at me. And I realized that was her fear and anxiety speaking.
Yes.
It wasn't her heart speaking. There were other things that happened as well, like over the years, like when she'd get mad at me for not knowing how to do something right at the bat, and I would just learn it. I realized that was her inner child coming out. And she was so scared that I would experience the same thing she experienced. And that was her way. She wasn't trying to create trauma. She was trying to prevent trauma. And that's another big thing. The other thing with opening up to this, if you don't mind me sharing, so I was, before we started recording, so I was in Italy in August, and it was my third trip. And when I was planning it, originally I was thinking of Greece, because I haven't been to Greece yet. I'm dying to go. So I decided next year's Greece. But I got this craving to go to Italy again. And I something inside me kept going, Cinque Terre, Cinque Terre, Cinque Terre. And when I was in Florence the first night, I realized my mom finally kept her promise to me, because she always promised we go to Europe together. And for one reason or another, it didn't work out. And towards the end of her life, or at least I realized it was the end of her life. But what now at this present moment, I realized was the end of her life. Her anxiety was so bad that I couldn't spend a lot of time with her. I would have to space myself. And it was very difficult to be close to her, and which was hard in its own way. But when I walked through the Piazza the first night in Florence, I realized, oh my gosh, mom's here with me.
Oh.
When I was in Cinque Terre and I'm climbing the hills and the summits, and I'm in these beautiful wave lagoons and whatnot. My mom unfortunately had a fear of heights. She had a fear of water and whatnot. But in the life where she is right now, she's free of all those fears. And she was able to experience with me, and she was able to be there for me. And that's what,
cool.
Yeah. And I share that because I imagine there are other people out there that are healing from traumas. And I feel it's important to share that because, again, it goes back into the fact that my mom was a good person, and that I realized she kept her promise.
Yeah.
She really promised.
It's funny how it took something tragic for you to have this injury for it to bring up all of this stuff. It's amazing, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Life, your past history, your traumas, what am I doing with myself? Like it just brought up everything.
Yeah, because the traumas came up before, like the realization of the traumas came up before the injury, but the injury was not.
Look at it again, right?
Well, I wouldn't say that. It was another layer of it. Like, I didn't realize. It was another deeper layer, because that's the thing. It's like layers you're peeling away, and once you work through one layer, there's another layer. There's another layer, and that's also why when I talk directly about the books I'm writing, I always say communication is evolving. How we communicate today doesn't mean we're going to communicate that way next week. And we need to be open to evolution. We need to be open to that. And when you're open, you're able to get signs like I did for my mom. They're all over. The first year I celebrated a birthday without my mom, I'll never forget it. I was in church, and the priest said, does anyone have a Valentine's birthday? My birthday is February 15th. I know you said yours is February 25th. And I raised my hand. The man next to me had a February 14th birthday. And the priest invited us both on the altar and gave us both a box of candy, and then had the whole entire congregation sing happy birthday to us. And I knew it was my mom. I knew that was her way of singing happy birthday to me. And so that's the beauty of this healing work. And again, I realized, like, I do believe, for me, my higher power is God. And I do believe my Achilles tendon was his way of putting a stop on me.
Yeah.
And opening my eyes to another area of my life that need to be rectified into a bigger purpose. And the other thing with my mom and I, and it's kind of more, it's a joke. It's a joke, and it's really true. My mom also survived on control. That's how she survived. And she was a good teacher because she did well with control and regimen. So she wanted me to be a teacher. Everyone in my family is either a lawyer, a teacher, or an architect, or an engineer. And then there's me. And my mom always wanted me to be a teacher, and that was our biggest fight. And because people respected my mom as the boss, they actually bullied me and would say, "Well, why aren't you a teacher?" And that's when and because of my healing work, I'm able to step up and say, "No, I don't belong in the classroom." And I was actually on another podcast where someone said something really beautiful to me, where they said, "You're going to reach so many more people with your books than you were if you were in one classroom." Because that's my joke. It's like, at the end of the day, my mom and I are compromising. She wanted me to be a school teacher. She wanted me to do different things. I kept telling her no, because I knew it wasn't right for me. And now I have found something that's right for me. And again, I do credit, I'm not wishing an Achilles tendon injury on myself or anybody else, but
Yeah. Or anything for that
or
matter.
period. But it did give me that moment to be like, no, I got to live my life more fully. I'm like, let's go. Like, let's do this. It's time. At the same time, I also don't want to, I should disclose too, I learned a lot in corporate. I
Yeah.
learned a lot of skills that developed me for this time, but because I do feel the timing was divine, because in 2018 was the injury, 2019 is when I got laid off, and it's also when my mom passed. And that year gave me time to develop the skills, the basic skills I needed to do a lot of the things I'm doing right now, to do a lot of things I needed to do immediately when I got laid off. Like, even when my mom passed, there, of course, we all were really shocked. So there was a lot of natural anxiety. And again, it gave me the courage to step back and say, okay, how do I do this? One of the biggest things I did when my mom was sick is I took a step back and I put her first. And there was one time I was in the room and someone said something and I started getting teary. So I left the room. I took responsibility for me because I knew I had a responsibility to be positive in front of her.
Right.
I took that responsibility. And so there are things you learn.
Going to bring up some aggravation at the time or something? Did you feel like it was going to cause some aggression?
I didn't. I did not, but it was more realization, I would say. I think it was a better way to put it, is more of a realization. Like, for example, I got very, very, very emotionally exhausted around my mom's passing. And it made me realize it was one of the many ways in my life where I realized I need community. And when I decided to start, and again, I decided to start my business simultaneously with my mom's passing. Like, I decided a couple weeks before I found out she was ill. So that ball was already rolling, but it made me realize that I need a better support system. And the books, when I realized I was called to write a children's book series, called to illustrate, because I've always been an artist, that further solidified how I can find community. Like, my mom's death made me realize why I need community. My books made me realize how I can gain community, if that makes sense. So it definitely,
well, in a different way too, but you're still teaching, right?
Yes. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
So what did you think about, I mean, you're going to continually heal from this, for sure.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process, but you made that decision to change it in its track because you could see the pattern from your mom before and your mom and then you, and you could allow it to continue or stop it in its tracks, I guess.
Because it's ironic, because one of my family members and I had a very beautiful conversation at Christmas last year, and it was hard. There were a lot of tears, But what I realized from my 12-step work is I was able to calmly say, "This hurt me." And that individual apologized to me. And since then, our relationship has grown.
Yeah.
And I told this individual, because again, I want to respect the privacy of my family. I told them a day or two after we had that talk, or initially had that talk, I said, I want to be a better person. I want to be a better sister. I want to be a better aunt. I want to be I meet Mr. Right, I want to be a good wife. I want to be a good business owner, a good neighbor. I want to be a better human being. Like, I'm so lucky to be a godmother and aunt. I am so lucky. And I want to be the best version of myself for them, but I also want to be the best version for my family, because again, when you talk through these things, you realize, oh, they didn't mean it maliciously, but at the same time, you're also able to say it in a way where they can understand your feelings and acknowledge your feelings and vice versa.
Right.
Something really beautiful about that. And the other thing I'm learning too from this communication is opening the door for people to come to me with their things. You know, we were talking about the what ifs. What if you get into that accident? What if something happens to your spouse? What if something happens to your child? When a friend or a family member comes to me with something heavy,
Yeah.
my thing when I talk to them about it is, let's take a step back. Why are we feeling that? Why are we feeling this? Like, let's dial it back a minute. And you know, it goes into what we were talking about before, is why people make decisions like not to use apps like yours to make a plan. You
Yeah.
know, like, a good example, my
Because
friend.
nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah,
Kristen.
exactly.
I mean, I'm Superman. Nothing's gonna happen to me.
Well, this perfect example I can give. So one of my closest friends, so her daughter is actually my godchild, and I love her son like my nephew. I actually refer him to my nephew. They both get VIP. Like, they both get here from Kristina. Like, they're gold star. I love them so much. But I remember with her son, because that's her first of her two children, when she was pregnant, I remember her, and she's a planner. She's very meticulous and whatnot, like you and I. And she said, you know, I'm so tired of everyone telling me not to worry about the nursery being finished. Like, I really want the nursery done before the baby comes. I want it there. I'm so tired of everyone telling me it doesn't matter. The baby's not going to be in there for a few months. And, you know, for me, hearing her say this, I supported her,
Yeah.
because her nursery being done is her way of having peace of mind. It's her
Right.
comfort. It's what she needs in her life to feel comfortable with her baby, her new baby. And
What
people
women
say,
are like that in general, actually.
yeah.
So,
And so, yeah,
and being prepared, or she had this idea in her mind.
that was what she needed.
That was what she needed, and I talk about that actually because we we women, when you talk about being prepared, women have to have a nest,
Mhm.
and we have to know that we have it all looked after. Whoever's in the nest, if it's just us, or if it's a full family, or just one child, or partner, or whoever it might be, but we need to make sure the nest is okay, and
Yeah,
that we have everything coming to the nest and we're all good. But men don't look at it that way.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well, this
I,
is actually something that we're telling her to
yeah,
stop complaining. And so, in light of what you're saying, when these women were giving her a hard time, what I realize now, like, I realized it then, but I'm able to articulate more clearly now because of my work. They were discounting her feelings.
yeah,
And that's what it is. And when we're able to communicate more effectively, so for example, if it's you and a spouse or you and a partner, and you want a clean kitchen at the end of the day, and that's what makes you feel good, but your spouse is like, who cares if there's a glass in the sink? It's really not about the glass in the sink. It's about your feelings. If it makes you feel safe, if it makes you feel complete.
complete, whatever it is.
And vice versa for him, you know, maybe for that male, or depending on your gender, whoever your partner is, whether you're whatever couple you're in, if you're a significant other, if for them, it's more like, hey, I want to watch my show at the end of the day. Like, I have to watch my one TV show, or I just want 10 minutes alone to read my book. That's okay too. But when we take a step back and
Yeah.
okay, why does my spouse or my partner need this? Why does my child need this? Why does my sibling need this? And when you look at that, like I will actually mention the family member directly with this reference, but so I'm very proud to say this. So I'm so proud of my sister. She has a beautiful 2-year-old boy. And I was just out there a week and a half ago for the birthday party. And now my sister and brother-in-law are extremely gracious in letting me stay with them. But I recognize I'm party girl. Like I'm city girl. I like stimulation, but I recognize that my sister and brother-in-law, they like a quiet house sometimes. And so last year, I remember when I went to the first birthday party, but the day after, I kind of noticed, everyone was a little quiet and I wanted to be respectful of that. So this year when I was planning to go out, I asked my sister, is it okay if I stay? Because I didn't know if they wanted more just them time the following day. And also my
Right.
sister's mother-in-law takes care of Caleb, my nephew is Caleb, on Monday morning. So I didn't want to intrude on her time. And graciously, my sister said, no problem. No, you can stay with us. But I did that because I want to respect my sister and brother-in-law's house first and foremost. I want to respect their family. And if they told me, listen, hey, we need a day off, they're allowed. They're human.
Yeah.
And by respecting them, I'm loving them and vice versa. And them letting me stay in their home, then letting me spend time with their son, my nephew, that's a huge gift. And, and my sister and I do have a really great line of communication right now where we do, I say to her, I come out this many times a year. I go out 4 times a year, when we talk about it. I always
Mhm.
refer my dates to her before I book my travel and whatnot, because to me, it's important to make sure I have time with them, but also respect they do have a schedule too.
Have
They
their
do
own.
have responsibilities. They do. And so it's really not about, yes, there are responsibilities, but dialing it back, it's about me acknowledging their lifestyle and it's about me acknowledging their feelings and their space and understanding their needs in that moment. And it is beautiful, it's a beautiful thing. And it's not just my sister, there's other family members too, where again, I do the same thing. Like I have this tradition that my mom started years ago and it was passed on to me, where I bake all the Italian cookies and I deliver them. And
Oh,
I missed a year with COVID and it broke my heart, but like it is what it is. We need to be safe. And so fast forward to last year where things still weren't solid, I reached out to as many people as I could and I asked, can I come visit you? And I was prepared for a lot of no's, but luckily I got a lot of yeses. But again, I did it for the same reason why I check with my sister and brother-in-law is I want to respect people's spaces. I
yeah.
want to respect people's health concerns. And same with my sister. If my sister, for some reason, my brother said for some reason, hey, listen, we're still a little weary of you going, could you please limit your visits? Like I have to respect that because it's
Yeah.
their home and they have a young child. And luckily, everything worked out. But there is something magical when we're able to acknowledge each other's feelings and
That's true.
communicate and open it up, So again, going back to my friend in the nursery and my sister in her home, it's all about recognizing their needs, you know what I mean? Like what's comfortable with them. And maybe this other thing too is why I brought it up, maybe although I observed that, oh, I think they want quiet time right now. Maybe it wasn't that, maybe they were distracted with other thoughts that I'm not aware of too. It's like,
Yeah.
it's also a moment to take a step back and not make assumptions, but actually have a
Well, you
conversation.
don't know what they're going through. You don't know what anybody's going through at the time. So
No,
right.
exactly.
It could be
Exactly.
having a huge fight with each other and you wouldn't even, technically know. So
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. So that's
yeah.
why, like, any of my friends, so I'm going into their homes or any of
Yeah.
my family members are going to their home, I always feel I feel more assured, I feel more comfortable, talking about my timeline of when I'm there and what I'm up to. And, something else I do, and again, I keep using my sister as an example here because, there is a child involved, which is like a big plug of why I visit. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I, I do plan certain visits during the year where I don't do a lot of visiting. like, I do say, "Hey, like, I'm only gonna call so and so and so and so to stop by, but that's it."
Yeah.
Because I want that quality time with my nephew, and even with him, like, as a child, they're developing so fast and so many things are going on, and it's having that space to respect them and to understand that, like, okay, they're what they want right now is not what they want tomorrow and vice
Yeah.
versa, and it's like you said, kind of go with the flow. And, I really believe my injury taught me that, healing from my trauma and definitely healing from my traumas have taught me that because there is no blueprint for everything. But in light of what we were talking about before, I realized, okay, what if? And my
Huh.
healing has given me the courage to ask for help. Like you said, who has your spare key? And I said, well, my neighbor. It took me a long time to ask a neighbor to have my spare key because I felt guilty about it. I felt like, oh, I'm being
Yeah.
cheap. But at the same time, I was like, no, not, I can't be
So limiting. Yeah.
everyone's savior. I need to have a backup plan. And like to go back to what you're
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
title of your podcast, that's my, I realized no, I need to trust people. I need to ask for help. And the same thing with like when I visit family, like again, going back to what I said before, like I realized, okay, when I go in and out within 24 hours, I'm a walking zombie.
Yeah.
And I realized no, I need to allot more time. So it's also why I had the further conversation with my family. And there's another piece of that conversation which I forgot to mention. And I had talked to my dad because I need to figure out, could you drive me to the train on Monday morning? So, but again, like it's having that courage to have that backup plan, to have
Yeah.
that,
Steps.
yeah,
Those
that step of like, okay, well, this isn't working. I need to adjust. How do I compromise with those around me without, stepping on toes, but also meeting everybody
you
halfway? Yeah.
do you miss the corporate world?
And can I actually tell you why I don't miss the corporate world? I, when I was in corporate, a lot of what would happen, like for example, like the analogy of the birthday party, like going up 24 hours, being a zombie, staying a little bit longer, getting quality time with my sister and her spouse and the baby, getting time with her mother-in-law, which she's lovely as well. Getting time with Diane it was so great this round when I visited. I, as an entrepreneur, I do similar things where I'm able to be like, okay, you know what? Let me try doing this a different way. In corporate, I was constantly hitting dead ends. And it was like I could never back up though. Because, for example, like I would lose responsibility on this one report, but then another report wouldn't arise, or else something would happen where I was trying to find a solution. Everyone kept telling me, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. But I'm still stuck with this problem. So a better analogy I can give for people listening that might be more clear, it's like you're driving a car.
Yeah.
And I was driving the car in corporate. I hit a dead end. I was stuck there. I had to wait for like a stroke of luck that I could find a way to back up the car and try another road. As an entrepreneur, if something doesn't work, I can back up the car and I can choose a different road whenever I want. And I do it all the time. Bella was not one of
Sometimes we're not sure what road to go.
yeah, and
Right.
and that's why
Do.
too, because I realize it's not it may not be in theme. So I apologize. I'll say this really fast so I don't like go off topic from what we're talking about. But one of the biggest things as an entrepreneur I get that from people when they see what I'm doing, they see the momentum of my books coming out, they see me going on shows like yours and talking about my messaging in different ways, etc. And they say, how do you get there? How did you do it? And I tell them, my biggest thing in my journey was when I started my blog because it
Right.
cost no money. And I would wake up every day and I would just blog every day. And it's about that consistency and about that discipline of just trying and doing things. And so, in light of you saying you don't know where to go, it's true.
Yeah.
My blog has evolved. My blog has evolved since I first started. I've actually started a second blog and now I have this series coming out. And honestly, I don't think it's my last book series that's going to be coming
Yeah.
out.
And I
But
wanted you to talk about
oh
all
yeah,
your characters and your like what you got going on there.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
does Bella have friends?
She does. She does. Yes. So there's another a boy elephant, Ezra. And then her best friend is Annie Puppy. And then there's Gay Puppy. And then there's two giraffes, Caleb after my nephew, and Briella Giraffe as well. The focus of this series is on communication. Because as I've been talking to you and your audience, when we communicate, we're able to acknowledge each other's feelings. And how I do this through the books. And again, that's why I talk about my mom, because I realize a lot of the reason for the trauma with my mom is that we weren't communicating.
Right.
And when I realize now when I work on this communication, I see the difference in all my relationships across the board. And I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm not saying there's not more work to get there, but I've seen some really beautiful progress in quite a few, which is really,
Awesome.
which is amazing, which I'm very, very grateful for.
Yeah.
And yeah, and how I do this through the books is, so there's going to be 15 in all. The first 5 are coming out next year. I'm working on like the order of when they're coming out and all that stuff. But spring 2023 is when the first one is definitely coming out. And in the topics that I'm dealing with, that I'm choosing within the 15, I'm choosing skills and transitions that we all go through.
Mhm.
So there's a focus on humanity there as well, and something that everyone can relate to. And what happens in each book is when Bella encounters a new skill, she feels negative feelings and gets upset. And then she opens up to her parent or another adult in the story. And the adult relates back. Like one of my favorite examples. So my mom's best friend is her Aunt Sue. And another of my mom's best friends, Sue, is also a good friend of me and my entire family. And when Bella gets upset about not being able to tie her shoe or zip or snap her jacket at the playground, Aunt Sue says, well, I still need help clasping my necklace. She's like, you do? But there's always that moment where the adult relates back and shares like, I still go through this, but in a different way. And then the next part of the book, and then then the book progresses
Goes on to the next step.
where she gets a special gift that helps her work through the transition.
Oh,
And
neat.
through the transition, she's able to share her finding with a friend. Like, so for example, for like the bed book, which is the first one that will come out, and she goes to visit her friend Annie Puppy. Annie Puppy is scared about going down the slide because the ladder is really high. Bella gives Annie a yellow rose, the way her mom and dad gave her a lovey to help her shift from her crib to her big girl bed. And with the rose in her hand, Annie is able to climb the ladder and go on the slide and overcome her fear. And in every book, there's that moment. And that's what I'm going for. And when we recognize that, we're able to tap into our feelings. And we're able to tap into
work through it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I also have a reader's guide at the back of every book where it's a gentle suggestion. Because like I told you, I'm an aunt, I'm a godmother. So you go from my friend I talked about with the nursery to my sister and her friends and all the other mommies I'm meeting now. Everyone is, and daddies too. Everyone is different. Every relationship is different. Every household has a different flow. These are gentle suggestions where I'm pointing out things I talk about and write about in the book and outline them for you as the caregiver, as the parent, as the custodian, so that you can apply them to your house. You can apply them to what works to you and your family. Because every child is different. Like I talk to so many parents that say, number 1 does this, number 2 does this. Like it's like night and day, and there's no blueprint. And I really admire women like my sister, women like my girlfriends, and women that I'm meeting, that I'm interacting with daily through social, women, that are, you mentioned you're a mom too. I admire all of you because there is no blueprint.
No, I always talk about that. We've not given any Bible or manual to follow and say, okay, what do you do when?
Yeah. Because like yesterday, I called my sister to check in on her, and it was really great. I was really glad to get her on the phone because I wanted to check in on her because some things were, unfortunately, her son had a fever earlier in the week, so I was concerned for her, and I wanted to make sure she was okay and the baby was okay. And I'm the older of the two of us too, so like I try to not be mom. I want to come off as if I want to respect, she's a grown woman, she's very, very responsible, very equipped. But at the same time, as a sister, I want to respect her feelings and let her know I'm here for her. And I was so happy to hear her voice. She sounded real like she was having a good day. In the background, I'm hearing my my nephew was upset because he wanted to stay outside. And my sister told me they already did 4 rounds of the neighborhood, and that should be more than enough. But, I admire her and I respect her for what she does because, she knows her child, she understands her child. And when I was visiting them for his birthday, so we were down at the beach house and he kept wanting to run the street. And he was doing with me, he was doing with his dad, my brother-in-law, and also with my sister. And so I put him in my brother-in-law's cart for the lawnmower. And I told my sister, I says, feel like a healthy compromise. He's happy. He's not in the street. I feel he's safe. And then my sister told me, yeah, when he does that, I tell him, I know you're feeling frustrated, but you need to be safe first. And I was like, oh, that's great. I know to do that next time. So there is also, I feel important for me as the aunt who's coming in and out of the situation, and not just with my sister. I do it with my friend whose daughter is my godchild. I feel the same way. Like it's my friend Delilah. I ask questions when I give things to the kids because her kids are getting older. Her son is, oh gosh, her daughter turned 6. My goddaughter turned 6 this year. And I believe her son is, I drawing a blank on his age, 8 or 9 this year. I have to double check. But same thing, I ask questions to respect them because there are things in the past where I thought, oh, this would be a great gift for the kids. And then Delilah said, well, actually, I don't really do that with them. I was like, okay, got it. I take a step back because again, like with my sister and my brother-in-law, I want to respect Delilah and her husband first and foremost. And that's also where with my books, even though I would love the opportunity to get to know as many people as possible that are reading my books on their children because that's like a really magical moment. But at the same time, I also want to respect their houses in the same way I'm respecting my sister and my friends' houses too. I want to respect that there are things that I'm not aware of that give them that space that they can finesse it, they can articulate it to what works for their household.
Their household, yeah. Of course, we could talk about this topic forever, but what would you like to leave the listeners with? What kind of message would you like to tell the listeners?
Oh gosh. So I just developed this quote. Let me see if I can really fast if you don't mind. It's a quote of mine. Let me see if I can get it up. Hold on one second. Yeah, it's here. Hold on one second. Hold on. Here it is. Okay. Luckily, I know where it was saved, so I can pull up it really fast. So this is the quote that I just developed. It's actually going to be featured in one of my blogs coming up in the coming weeks. When we put our trust in fate and combine it with faith in ourselves, doors open up for us. And I didn't want to lose my mom. I didn't want to rupture my Achilles tendon. But in those moments, I knew I needed to trust my higher power. I needed to trust God and put faith. And because I put in that faith, I'm here with you right now. I'm seeing my relationship with my family take a turn for the good, which I'm forever grateful for. I'm seeing my friendships develop. I'm seeing myself find my way into communities.
And grow.
And so that's what I want to believe. And so in light of that backup plan, like it's also giving me the courage to start building up that backup plan. I love catchphrases, so I make sure I give give it that plug,
Well, that's awesome. And listeners, don't forget all of her information is down below in the description box to reach out to Kristina Lucia. So feel free to make sure you do that. She has a great website and a great blog. And I didn't know about your second one, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I call it Diaries of Bella, and it's actually a love letter between my mom and I. And like when I healing from the traumas, again, it makes me realize she really was doing the best of what she had.
Yes.
Is my way of shining light on that. And it's not officially in the works right now, but I have put that seed out there with my publisher telling her, I would like to put those blogs in a book at some point for the parents.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be another great book for the parents.
I think people need to realize, as bad as it is, like I just watched the movie Elvis, and the Marilyn Monroe story. And it did something a little bit to me. It was very disturbing back stories to their lives that we thought, I mean, it's all visual to what we think we see the person, but we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And sometimes we'd be very shocked. And I think, well, I was shocked by how horrible their life was behind the scenes. And there was a lot of good things, and how they succeeded is beyond me because of all the traumas that they have dealt with in life and continue to deal with. But to make a long story short, I really think that we're not giving these books to understand what the other person went through. So yeah, I think we have to be a little bit more open, like you suggested.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for coming on today.
For
And I
having me.
have to run, so I didn't want to let you go too long before you have to run out the door. And I know how busy New York is, so you have to get your little legs going out there. So please take a moment and subscribe to our channel if you already haven't. And I get my hand out every time. Press on that bell down here and the subscribe button if you already haven't. Because if you found us, if you found our show, you found us for a reason. You are supposed to hear this. So please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for our podcast and our live streams. We have great conversations with some of the most interesting and accomplished people in the world today, like beautiful Kristina. I think you'll be entertained and informed, and I hope that we've inspired you to start thinking about your unique plan, about your life. And, you know, nobody's Superman, and so expect the unexpected. We are on all podcast platforms: YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. And we have a VIP Facebook group so that you can come on in the group and share with others and ask questions. So thank you for taking your time, your precious time with us today. And thank you, Kristina Lucia. So thank you for coming from beautiful New York. I'd love to.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been so much fun. I really appreciate this opportunity to share my story.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And I always end with Carol Burnett, because Carol Burnett was a very beautiful lady. And I know you know who she is.
Love her. Love her.
I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes a time we have to say so long. So long, everybody. Love to have you here. Thank you, Kristina Lucia, for coming on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe, be kind, and expect the unexpected. Till next time. Bye from Bella.